Have two special guests today, and I'm going to introduce Zach DeMuth. Zach is actually also an alum of Shaw from the class of 2011. His role is head of America's Hotels Research at JLL. Zach has been with us the last couple of days, guest speaking in our classes, meeting with faculty and with students. We greatly appreciate his contributions and his help in ensuring and welcoming Kevin Davis, who's with us today. So at this time, I'm actually going to hand the microphone over to Zach, who's going to introduce our esteemed guest, Kevin Davis. Zach?
Thank you, Dean Lance, Dean of NASIA, and the entire Shaw faculty and students for having me here today. It's truly an honor to be back here at Shaw, and it's really been an incredible week here on campus. As a student, I distinctly remember and fondly remember sitting in these seats and benefiting from these Dean's Distinguished Talks, and really truly honored to be here today as well, specifically to introduce my colleague, Kevin Davis. Kevin is the Chief Executive Officer of JLL Hotels and Hospitality Group in the Americas, where he's responsible for investment sales, debt and equity placement, strategic advisory, and asset management. Previously, Kevin led JLL's Hotel Investment Banking Group and brings over 20 years of hospitality and capital markets experience to the role. Since joining JLL in 2013, Kevin has been involved in almost $20 billion of financings, which include ground-up construction projects, value-add assets, and stabilized properties. Notable transactions include the financing of the JW Marriott Essex House in New York City, the Standard High Line, the 1 Hotel Central Park, Loews Regency San Francisco, and the Ritz-Carlton St. Thomas. In 2020, Kevin was named the Jack A. Schaefer Financial Advisor of the Year. Kevin has also been recognized by Crain's New York Business Notable Black Leaders and Executive List in 2021, and Savoy's Most Influential Black Executives in Corporate America in 2022. Kevin holds a BA with honors in economics from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, a JD from the UCLA School of Law, and an MBA from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. While Kevin's prior work experience is incredible, I think what makes him uniquely qualified to speak today is his leadership style. When I was a Shaw student, like all of you, I was taught to question the status quo and not simply accept something because it's always been done this way. And to me, Kevin really embodies this mindset. I first met Kevin actually almost exactly a year ago when he was interviewing me for the position that I have now. And while I don't remember the specifics of the entire conversation, there was one moment of it that really has stuck with me. So Kevin asked me my perspective on the impact of increased hybrid and remote work on the broader lodging industry. My answer was something along the lines of less people in offices likely will result in less business travel, which will be bad for our industry. In my defense, that was pretty much the standard talk track at the time. But Kevin responded, and paraphrasing slightly here, but he responded that he takes a contrarian viewpoint. In his view, increased hybrid work equals increased mobility, and increased mobility equals more opportunity for the hotel industry. Fast forward a year, and terms like bleisure or workation have become commonplace in our industry. But I think regardless of whether Kevin's prediction had come to fruition or not, it's his contrarian mindset and focus on challenging the status quo that make him an exceptional leader. Therefore, I can truly think of no one better to be here today and kick off this year's Dean's Distinguished Speaker Series. So with that, please join me in welcoming Kevin Davis.
Thank you, Zach. This is an extra special talk because this is our first one for the year. So let's welcome Mr. Kevin Davis, America's CEO for JLL Hotels and Hospitality. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So Kevin, we usually start these talks from the very beginning. So we get to know who you are and how did you get to where you are today. So let's start with, where did you grow up?
I grew up, I was born in New Orleans and spent most of my formative years growing up there, but I had an opportunity to move around when I was younger. And so also lived in West Palm Beach, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, Wilmington, North Carolina, then back to New Orleans. So a little bit of everything, but New Orleans is home.
Fantastic. So who were your mentors that people that you looked up to, either in your life around you or on larger than life pictures?
Yeah, it's interesting. I grew up around, so my family on both sides has been in New Orleans for since the early 1800s. And on my mom's side, we had a large Catholic family. My grandparents had 12 kids. And so they raised 12 kids in a 1,000 square foot house. And the span of ages was such that the youngest child was only, a couple years older than me. And so when I came along, I sort of got adopted into the household. And I had an opportunity to see two working class people basically create a home and raise 12 amazing kids who've gone on to do great things in their own right. And so for me, it was seeing the value of hard work. And despite the circumstances, economic circumstances that they were in, they were able to create a wonderful family and loving home. And so I think for me, that was a foundational experience, and it's really been guiding for me as I've moved through my life.
That's incredible. So with so many siblings and so many people in your family, are they all spread out all over the country so you get to meet them, or are they all still in some geographically
they're spread out, but mostly in New Orleans, Texas, Atlanta. But again, they're really strong. There's a really strong family connection, and I think through that connection there was this desire to push one another and motivate. And again, that's been for me, like, that's the source of. I think about. So I had my grandmother, and grandfather, but my great grandmother and grandfather lived in the house right next door. In New Orleans, we have what are called shotgun houses, and literally it's called a shotgun. You open the front door, the rooms are back to back to back, so you open the front door, you could literally shoot a gun and it goes straight through the house to the back because there are no hallways. And so there were two shotgun houses that are adjoined, so they're next to one another. So we would float between my grandmother and my great grandmother's house. But just seeing, them raising these strong kids, again, it's just been, for me, that's foundational.
That's amazing to grow up with not just your parents, but grandparents and great-grandparents.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an incredible experience that not many, get to have. What about the school? Were they all driven? I mean, you're obviously excelled academically all your life and you've risen up to so many new degrees, but did you see that environment around you, or were you kind of an exception in there?
Maybe a bit of an exception, but I was taught to do better. And I was given the foundation in terms of emotional support and encouragement to do better. Both of my parents went to college, but neither finished. My dad started in corporate America, notwithstanding the fact that he didn't finish. That was when you could actually, go and you start in sales and you kind of move your way up. And so he progressed into a middle management role. So we grew up very middle class. But I think sort of being encouraged by the family, and also, look, it was, I have people in my family, older people, that weren't given the same opportunities that I had, either educationally or professionally. And so when I realized that I was reasonably intelligent, fairly driven, and I was given these opportunities, for me, it was all about, you got to break through the doors and take advantage of the opportunities. And I just think about my grandmother and great grandmother who toiled so hard to raise this amazing family. And if I squander this gift, you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. And so I've sort of felt, burden is not the right word, but I've just felt this like, hey, I have to do it for my family because I've been given all these gifts. And so you can't squander the opportunity.
Right. And so when you talk about the gifts, but you're also simultaneously talking about this 1,000 square foot house and so many kids living there, and then obviously going to school and you see the environment. How was that school environment? Very wholesome, very conducive to education, or was it like a tough neighborhood where you had to sort of, survive?
Yeah, I think where my parents and grandparents grew up, it was actually, back then, it was an okay neighborhood. It changed over time. My neighborhood, my household was not. We were a couple miles away, and it was a solidly middle class neighborhood. But again, I was just fortunate enough to be pushed. But actually, I'll tell you an interesting story. So we moved around quite a bit. So born in New Orleans, and I lived in North Carolina when I was in Wilmington, North Carolina, when I was in from second grade to through fifth grade. And I'll never forget my fourth grade teacher. After fourth grade, you could move into accelerated, gifted, and talented is when they started doing the tracking or whatever. And I'd done really well in school, but I had this old Southern teacher who, for whatever reason, didn't think I was qualified to move into the gifted and talented program. It was only because my parents were astute and on top of it. They actually challenged her and they challenged the school in order to get me into the gifted program, which I did in fifth grade, and was able to take advantage of that. But again, that comes from, having a family that's really pushing you and motivating you and attuned to your education, and where they see unjust situations to step up and fight. And so for me, that was really formative. I'll never forget the teacher. I'll never forget the circumstance. I'll never forget my mother advocating for me in school. So
I guess that's what it takes to sort of learn those lessons early on.
yeah.
Kevin, I've spoken to many kids, and I have a habit of asking, so what do you want to be when you grow up? I've never heard a response say that I think I want to provide debt to distressed properties and get them to new ownership. So what did you want to do when you were growing up?
Look, that's a great question. When I was growing up, I knew I wanted to make money. Okay, I'll admit that. And there were only a couple of options that were presented. It was like, if you want to make money, you could be a doctor or a lawyer, but there weren't many options that I was aware of, nor was my family aware of. So honestly, I wanted to be a doctor. I went to UNC, Chapel Hill. I was a pre-med major, and started off strong, hit organic chemistry too, and things kind of started to go off the rails a bit, but quickly changed. And I can certainly talk a bit more about my career progression. But what I found was sometimes you think you want to do something, and then after you start executing it, you realize that maybe it is or it isn't the right thing to do. And so the most important lesson for me has been, whenever you feel like, hey, maybe this isn't the path, it's being able to switch, recognize it, and then transition into something that's more suitable. So I definitely did not grow. I didn't even know what this job was. So this has certainly been part of an interesting and meandering journey.
So I go back to the question. So did you have any dreams of being a policeman, astronaut as a kid? Or do you even remember that far back?
Yeah, it was, like I said, I think it was
just making money.
Well, no, it's to be a doctor.
Doctor, okay.
I wanted to be a doctor. Yeah, right. I thought helping people, it's great, well-respected member of the community. But again, after I started, once I got into it, I kind of realized I ended up taking an econ class the summer after my sophomore year, and I absolutely fell in love with the study of economics. And what I realized, it's social science. It's about human behavior at the end of the day. And I'm an observer of human behavior. And so I really connected with economics, and it spoke to me. And so I changed my major, became an econ major. And that was when I developed an interest in banking and finance. I ended up deciding to go to law school when I graduated. The economy wasn't in great shape. And at the time, I wasn't totally sure what I wanted to do. So law school was a way to sort of bide my time, get a good education, also position myself to do okay financially. And so I went, and in the course of my studies in law school, I realized I didn't want to be a lawyer. So, well, there you go. However, when I was in law school, I had an opportunity to do a couple of interesting things. I interned at a civil rights organization one summer between law school, and worked with an incredibly talented group of lawyers. And so had that public interest experience, which was really fascinating, also challenging, honestly. I also had an opportunity to intern at the Department of Justice working with some very talented lawyers who were basically arguing cases before the Supreme Court. So that was a really interesting experience. And through the 6 months, because I spent a summer and a semester in DC, through the 6 months I spent in DC, I realized that I had a strong interest in politics, and so decided that I wanted to pursue a path in public policy. So upon graduation, I secured a fellowship, started working on Capitol Hill, ended up doing banking and securities policy work, which tied into my econ background, for a member of Congress and a U.S. Senator, both of whom, one was on the House Banking Committee, the other was on the Senate Banking Committee. And so had an opportunity to see how the sausage was made in real time. And it was really fascinating. I was a young, idealistic, want to change the world person, still want to change the world, but ultimately realized that my interest lay in finance, and so I could likely change the world more effectively by moving into a career in finance. So the last educational move I made, I went to business school at Wharton, and transitioned then to a career working in finance, and ultimately real estate finance, and ultimately into brokerage. So, like I said, it's been a circuitous route for me, but I wouldn't be the person I am had I not done all those various things. To be clear, you don't have to do that in order to get here. That just happens to be my journey. But I also think it helps me bring just a very different perspective to the role. I'm not going to do what predecessors have done in this job. There really is no mold for me. Look, I grew up in a household. My dad worked for the Amazon of the 20th century, which was Sears. He worked there for 40 years. They were the biggest, most prominent, most influential retailer in the country for many, many years. And he taught me, I remember him telling me a story about being in a management meeting in the 70s, and his colleagues were talking about some rinky-dink company in Bentonville, Arkansas called Walmart, and how they were trying to compete with Sears, and what a joke. And the arrogance is ultimately one of the reasons why they effectively exist in name only, Sears, that is, and Walmart is what it is. And so sort of having been raised by a person like that, for me, it's all about breaking glass, trying to figure out how to do things differently, never resting on your laurels, never being comfortable. There's always a better way. And so that's those are some of the guiding principles from my background that really help determine how I move through the world and execute this job.
It's very interesting you talk about the Sears and Walmart comparison. Sears, like you said, it was the Amazon of the day. I mean, there was a time when they would even sell you a house on
right?
a mail order kit.
Absolutely.
So the law school was right after high school, so there was no gap in there.
After college.
After college.
Yeah.
And between law school and MBA, you had a few years on the Hill.
Correct.
Okay. So I know the law school was because you were still figuring out what you want to do.
Right.
But the business school was because you wanted to pivot your career
Correct.
from the Hill to
Correct.
the commercial real estate or the business side. Okay. Since we are an academic institution, we have an undergraduate degree and we have graduate degrees. So can you just sort of, tell us the importance of higher education and, what you gained from these degrees and why did you pursue them, and any advice for the students on higher education front?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I wouldn't be the person I am had I not gone to law school and then had subsequently not gone to business school. And for me, and we talked about this a little bit last night, I mean, for me, law school was defining in the sense of it really taught me how to think about a problem, apply a set of facts and circumstances to a principle of law, and try to determine a solution. And so it was, in terms of advancing my analytical thinking skills, I think law school and graduate school is helpful in that respect. There's obviously the relationships that you form. There's certainly a bit of maturity that takes place during that time. And law school also, for me, just the writing skills. that's one of the things. I was actually talking to my wife about this morning, where she says, you know, you really need to delegate more things to other people. And I'm trying to do a better job of that. But one of the things that's really important to me is writing. And so frequently when I delegate, the writing is not as good as I'd like it to be. So I end up spending a lot of time writing. I don't get paid to do that, but I think I appreciate the power of the written word. I really do. And so that's one of the things that I think having a training in the law taught me. And so that's important to me. And then look, for business school, I mean, going to Wharton was really a high point for me in terms of the networking, but also I did that at a time when I really knew what I wanted to do. So I attacked business school with a focus. I mean, you know, 2 weeks before classes started, I'm already having interviews with investment banks and I'm lining everything up. So it was almost like, and I don't mean to diminish, but it was like a trade school. It was like hardcore finance, corporate finance, real estate, et cetera. And so just the directly applicable skill set that I got from attending Wharton has been incredibly powerful, coupled with the network.
So now you are in this top-notch MBA school and you're interviewing with all of these people. How did you get your start in the commercial real estate? I mean, you had so many choices to choose from.
Let me tell you, man, the accidents with me never stop. They just keep going. I don't even know if I told you the full story. So I started Merrill Lynch. I got hired. I was a summer associate at Merrill Lynch. I was offered a full-time job in investment banking. I started in media and telecom. My first day of work was September 6th, 2001. So we know what happened a couple days later. We were in training. So we were in training from September through November. We get out of training. The economy is in a shambles. And all of a sudden, Merrill Lynch announces layoffs. So literally most of our class, our first year class, myself included, got laid off, like right after we were hired. So just indiscriminate. So anyway, here it is. It's November of 01. I just got married, got my wife to move from LA to New York, and I'm like at home unemployed. So anyway, a couple weeks later, I got a call back from Merrill Lynch, like, "Hey, we're really sorry. We have jobs on the sales and trading side. Do you want to apply?" So I said, "Sure." So anyway, I got a job at a sales and trading desk. I started back in January of 2002. So absolutely hated it, but I needed a job. So I took it. I did it for a couple of months, and you know, it was at that point I'd taken real estate courses in business school. And I really loved it. But, you know, interestingly, at that time, I wasn't prepared to commit full time to commercial real estate because I thought it was a little bit too specialized. And so after having done a job for a couple months that I hated, I got an opportunity to interview for a real estate analyst position, like a research analyst at another investment bank. I ended up getting the job, and I approached my boss at Merrill and said, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'm going to leave. I'm going to real estate research at such and such company." He's like, "Well, I had no idea you were interested in real estate." I was like, "Well, I really had no idea either until I worked here." So anyway, he says, "Well, hold on, don't leave. I want you to talk to our real estate folks." So I talked to the real estate folks at Merrill Lynch, ended up getting a job and stayed at Merrill Lynch. And that was the start of my commercial real estate career. You know, the other thing that happened around that time, so that summer when I was trying to figure out the real estate thing, my mother passed away. And so that sort of gave me another perspective on life, and I hated my job. And I realized, like, I'm really passionate about this real estate thing. And so I think it was the confluence of those events with this opportunity that I was like, you know what? I don't care that it's specialized. You love it. Go for it. And I haven't looked back since.
Excellent. Zach, I know you mentioned that he recruited you to real estate research last year. That's where he got his start from. So
you didn't know. I don't tell you. You know, that is so like nuanced in the esoteric of my past. I don't talk about it that much. But yeah, that's truly how it started.
Okay. So I'm going to fast forward. And can you give all of us an elevator speech about what is it that you do now?
we sell and finance hotels for owners around the country and around the world. We also provide advisory and asset management services, i.e., you own a hotel, it's a Marriott, and it's managed by X company. You don't like what Marriott's doing, you don't like what your manager's doing, you can hire a JLL to go out and run a process to identify a new brand and or a new manager. That's part of our strategic advisory business. We also asset manage hotels. So you may be an owner of a hotel, but you're based in London and the hotel is based in LA. We will be the owner's representatives, the eyes and ears of the owners at the asset, representing their interest. So we sell, we finance, we provide asset management and advisory services.
Excellent. So you make deals.
We make
all
deals.
The time.
We make deals. We bring people together, usually.
So what part of that deal-making process you truly enjoy?
I enjoy the challenge of a complicated deal, particularly when people think it can't get done. And it's, having a knowledge of the market and who has an appetite for this and who has an appetite for that. And it's the bringing people together, particularly when it's not obvious. You may have a meeting and you'll have a group and they just, it's a big ultra high net worth family, and they woke up one day and they said, I want to own select service hotels in Florida. And it's not something that you would typically see. Let's say a foreign high net worth family wants to do that, but because you're out and about and you know what people's appetites are, you also know you have a client over here that has a select service portfolio in Florida that they never thought about selling until you bring them a family that's really interested in being in that asset type in those markets, and all of a sudden you bring people together. So I think that's a big part of it. The other part, look, I talked earlier about, like, I'm a sociologist at the end of the day. I'm a student of people. So it's managing human relationships. I talked a little bit last night about, a situation where, we had two partners that recently got into a little squabble over a deal. And part of my job was, one, you make the deal happen, but it's also making everybody feel good and mending fences and mending relationships after a tough transaction happens. And so that's also a big part of it, that's not in the job description, but I think in order to be really good at this, you have to have that skill set. It goes beyond just, matching buyers and sellers or bringing financing to an asset. It's also managing the human element and the relationships between people.
There are many times very early in the morning when I wake up thinking about buying a Ritz as well. So at some point I might contact you. But in this deal-making process, how does value get added? How do you add value to this? And is that useful for the people, for the employees, for the society? So where do you think is the value creation here?
Yeah, I think it's on multiple levels. I mean, first of all, you may have people that want to bring a new concept to an asset. I mean, you may have an asset that's been undermanaged, underinvested, and when you put a deal together, you bring a new owner in that's going to invest capital, grow the F&B experience, build a new pool experience, hire people, really transform the asset. And so I think it's there where you can add value at the asset level. But look, in the process of doing that, you're creating jobs, you're sustaining jobs, you're growing communities, you're building communities. I mean, some of my favorite deals have been either development deals or redevelopment deals where you have an owner that's taking an old existing building that's not been in use for a while and transforming that into a hotel food and beverage experience. I worked on a deal in Savannah where the owner bought an old power plant on the river at a part of River Street, which at the time was pretty derelict, run down. The power plant had been closed for many years. He transformed it into an amazing 420-key JW Marriott hotel, which is arguably the best hotel in Savannah. I remember walking that deal 5 years ago when it was this big vacant power plant. but now he's created this amazing experience, unique hotel experience. And in the process, 12 F&B outlets, but in the process really enlivened and reinvigorated that part of River Street, that part of downtown Savannah. So being a part of projects like that, where you're sort of creating something new, is really special.
So you mentioned at the beginning that the first job you had at Merrill Lynch you really didn't enjoy. How important is it for you to enjoy your job, and do you truly enjoy this job?
Yeah, I love it. It's certainly with its challenges, but to me, look, you have to wake up every day and really love what you do, I think, in order to be successful at it. If you're forcing yourself to do something because your parents want you to do it, or your friends are all doing the same thing, or you think it's the right thing for you, but you're not really enjoying it, I think you have to question that. It has to come from inside. The old saying, the cream always rises. I think it's true. And what I have tried to impart to my children is, look, first of all, find something that you love to do. It's great if you happen to do it a little bit better than everybody else, and pursue it as aggressively as possible, because that's how the cream rises. I think it's hard to be excellent at something that you don't enjoy doing.
So you mentioned this power plant that got transformed into this amazing hotel and reinvigorated the area. Are there any other deals you remember that you truly are very proud of that happened under your watch and that you added value? Yeah, no, another one is in Boston. It's actually the new Omni Hotel in the Seaport. We worked with the Davis companies to help capitalize that. We raised equity for that deal, and we also raised construction financing. It was parking lot, hole in the ground, across from the convention center a couple years ago, and we were presented, or we pitched, we pitched for the opportunity to represent Davis on that, and it was really interesting because we were not his number one choice, but we fought so hard and so aggressively to get the mandate that ultimately, through the force of will of our collective team, we were able to get John Davis to hire us, and I think we performed exceptionally well. We brought the Carpenters Union in. It was at union construction, and also it's union labor in the operations. And so our thought was, because it was a union hotel, that we would try to bring capital from the unions in. And so we brought the Carpenters Union, a couple other unions in to the equity. We also raised the construction financing and got the deal done. So that was one where, Boston, the Seaport, obviously everybody's aware all the things going on in the Seaport. So to be a part of that project. And look, usually these development deals take a couple years. It's funny. Part of the pitch, clients will always ask you, so I've got this development deal. We need to come out of the ground in 3 months. Can you raise the capital in 3 months? Usually, yeah, sure, we can get it done. Let me tell you, the truth of the matter, these construction deals, just on the capital raising side, best case 6 months, they're usually 18 to plus months. That's just the way these deals work. So it's so anyway, you generally tend to work on them for a long time. So you get to be close to the ownership group, but also you get vested in the project because you work on it for a fair bit of time. So I want to pivot a little bit, Kevin, and we've heard about all your successes and your incredibly current position. Zach talked about all the successes you've had, but is there a time in your life when you didn't have this success? You had a setback in your career, and can you talk about that time and how you sustained yourself and motivated yourself to sort of come back stronger? Yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk about the time actually right before JLL. So I was with Merrill Lynch from 2001 to 2009. The financial crisis happened. Our team left Merrill and started a debt fund platform, which we had for a couple years. And it was interesting. We did it for about 2.5 years. It helped sustain us through the post-GFC period, which was good. Ultimately, we weren't able to raise additional equity capital, so we decided to disband. So that was a little bit of a setback. But next up, I then took a job at a bank
doing commercial real estate finance, which is what I'd been doing before. And man, I didn't get along with the person who hired me at the end of the day. I think he wanted someone different from me, and I just didn't think he was a good person. But anyway, so I got laid off shortly after I was hired. And so, I'm out, I'm looking for a job, and it was really fascinating. I mean, I'd been laid off right after I started from Merrill Lynch. So I had been there before, but at this point I was much more experienced, and I think was better positioned to handle it. But look, I think that was the point that I realized, look, you need to be open to all different types of opportunities. And, the JLL opportunity presented itself to me during that time. And, interestingly, I hadn't much thought about moving into the brokerage space previously, but I was experienced enough to know that, having looked back over my, at that point, I don't know, 10 plus years of commercial real estate experience, that, the brokerage community was really at the intersection of everything that's going on in the industry, the relationships that those folks had. And even when the market was not performing well, they always had jobs, because there's distress and you can sell distress notes and you can do UCC foreclosures. Equity markets may be shut down, debt markets may be shut down, but there's always a role, always opportunities for the intermediaries. So having sort of recognized that, I said, this JLL thing could be pretty interesting. And so decided to move forward. And that was 2013. That was immediately prior, and here I am. And again, like I said, I didn't grow up necessarily focused on brokerage, and certainly not running, a platform within a major brokerage firm. But the most important thing for me has been, look, pursue things that you love. I did a fair number of hospitality deals when I was a lender. And so I knew I loved the space, loved the people like Jonathan Martin. There are characters in hospitality that you just don't see in other asset classes. And so that's what attracted me to the space. And I sort of realized when I took the job that I felt I could do a good job and knock it out of the park. And so, so far, so good.
So what is a core value for you? What I mean is the guiding principle that helps you do the right thing when you're making your decisions and making choices?
For me, there are a couple. I think one of the most important is authenticity. I think that's what I bring to the role. It's authenticity and humanity, right? We all have good days, we have bad days, we have days that are just okay. And depending on the day that you catch me, I think you'll see each of those emotions. I'm not afraid to say, I don't know, or I don't understand. That's a natural human emotion. And I think, if you think about the old model of leadership, it was, tough. It was a very masculine model. Tough, never show your weakness, never show vulnerability. But that's not healthy. That's not human. And so I'm not afraid to show vulnerability and weakness, because I think in doing so, you project strength. And I think people tend to respond to that. So for me, I think authenticity is a big thing. The other thing is just, it's the old adage, it's the golden rule. Treat others like you want to be treated. I remember being in ULC not that long ago, although it was a long time ago. And I remember what I wanted in leaders. And so I try to take that recollection of me 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and I try to be that type of leader, which is the person that I would have wanted to lead when I was in that seat. So,
all of these students graduating are in a very fortunate situation where they've got tons of jobs available. We have got workforce shortage in the United States. So recruiting and retaining talent is a major issue these days in the company. So what do you think needs to happen or change in our relationship to work and our team members that we lead?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I struggle with this myself. Technology has been empowering in the sense that, we have access to email and Zoom and all these other tools all the time. and work has increasingly crept into home life. There's no separation between work and home life. And so I think, and that was exacerbated over COVID, because remember, during quarantine, we quote unquote didn't have anything else to do. So the expectation is that we would work all the time. And so work found its way into literally every facet, every hour of life. And so I think a big thing that we have to figure out is how to provide people with more balance and really drawing boundaries between work and home life. That's one of the reasons why I've taken the view about hybrid work and why I think it's important, the flexibility that it provides, because people need to live. Work will find us. And so we need to find a way to allow people to execute the rest of their lives. And so it's really that balancing act. Look, what I applaud the younger people coming into the workplace for is having a more balanced perspective. When I was coming up, it was, hey, you bragged about how little sleep you got, you didn't take vacation, how late you were in the office. And I think younger people take a very different view, which is, look, I'm going on vacation and I'm out. No, I'm really out, not reachable. And that's something that we didn't have. And it's really fascinating, because I think, look, when my kids look at me and how I execute my life and work, I can guarantee you, like, you know, they probably don't want to do what I do, or certainly not the way I do it. And that's unfortunate, but that's why I think there has to be a change.
So has the pandemic caused any changes in the real estate industry? And what are some of those changes, and are those for the good?
Yeah, I think it's caused numerous changes. I think it'll be years before we fully appreciate. But clearly, the most obvious is hybrid work. I think people are reassessing their relationship with work and where they want to spend their time. I think that's why we are having a lot of the issues we're having with labor force participation. People just don't want to work in the ways that they have previously. And look, given the increased flexibility, which Zach referred to earlier, I appreciate you remembering that. I recall that distinctly. I think people have greater mobility and greater flexibility, and will continue to do so. I call that the take back. And I'll talk about why I call it the take back. People will have greater flexibility to live and work where they want. And I think that will ultimately encourage more travel. And I think that's good for hospitality. I think that's driving the growth of the short-term rental Airbnb business, which is a sector that I'm really excited about. We have a couple of mandates in that space. And so I think it gives us, length of stay at hotels has increased one night since the start of the pandemic. Extended stay is a sub-asset class within hospitality, which is taken off for a lot of the reasons that we're talking about. So I think this offers a great opportunity for the hospitality industry to sort of morph and reformulate itself. It doesn't mean that we have to give up everything traditional hospitality, full service hotels. Stuff will always be around, but I think there's guest demands are changing, and I think we have an opportunity to change accordingly. Look at the office space. As some of these leases, particularly in Class B and Class C buildings, come up, I think you're going to see a fair amount of vacancy in those types of spaces. So there's going to be opportunities for adaptive reuse of office buildings. How does that mesh with the needs for affordable housing? So I think there may be some interesting opportunities to do things there. So look, COVID is a catalytic event, and I think we're just beginning to see the changes occasioned by COVID. Look, what's exciting about you all is in your generation, you're coming out in the midst of this change. Hard to say where we're going, but whenever there's change, whenever there's volatility, that's where there's opportunity. And that's why you all should be really excited about moving into the workplace at a time like now.
So you did allude to a few spaces within the real estate that will benefit. So can you sort of explicitly address what are you bullish about? What aspects of the entire gamut of real estate that you're bullish about?
Look, I'm bullish about hospitality. Obviously, I truly am. I think particularly in smaller markets, secondary, tertiary cities, I mean, affordability has become a major, major issue in primary markets and the superstar cities. And so I think you have a lot of well-educated people with good earning potential that frankly just can't afford to live in New York, San Francisco, Miami now, Los Angeles. And I think they're moving to smaller cities, which technology facilitates you being in places that are not a New York or San Francisco. And so, look, you've seen it in Austin, you've seen it in Nashville, but I think it's, moving into other markets like Greenville, South Carolina, like Asheville, North Carolina, places that are kind of the next level behind the Austins and the Nashvilles. The other thing that's changed too, it's interesting with COVID now. I don't think people have an expectation that their banker necessarily has to sit in New York or San Francisco or wherever. And I think there's the expectation that people will move around and they can be wherever and they can still deliver high quality service. So before, if I said, hey, I lead JLL Hotels, yeah, I'm based in Asheville, North Carolina, people would say, it's crazy. But think about it. I mean, post-COVID, it doesn't matter. I can have an office in New York, but I can spend 3 days a week in Asheville. I don't have a place in Asheville, but I'm saying the ability to do that, and I think the acceptance of that in the space will cause people to move to some of these smaller cities, which have good demographic characteristics, good culture, good food scene, et cetera. So really bullish there. Look, bearish, I talked about, it's, the office space, particularly Class B and Class C, some of these older, late 60s, 1970s, a lot of office buildings on 6th Avenue, big floor plates, hard to be converted to other uses. I just don't know. I mean, fundamentally, it's great real estate locationally, but I think the owners will have challenges with the physical plant and what you can't use it as office. Can you convert a large floor plate office building on 6th Avenue to affordable housing where you need to have a window for every unit, but your floor plates are massive? I don't know. So, but that's where the opportunity is, right? It's how do I figure that out? How do I figure out how to take these large floor plate buildings in City X that are likely functionally obsolete and turn it into something else? That's the opportunity set.
So I want to pivot to another topic which is very current in our society today: environmental governance and social factors. So ESG. Do you see any innovations in our real estate space, and will that have a positive impact on sustainability and development of cities?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see cities and companies increasingly pushing for carbon net zero emissions, and it's something that a lot of our clients are really focused on. I know a lot of the public pension fund investors, institutional investors are focused on it, and they're really driving the real estate investors, the asset managers, to be focused on it. So it's something that we're talking a lot about. It's particularly poignant in hospitality because relative to the other commercial real estate asset classes, we are the biggest consumers of energy. Think about it, energy and water. Think about it. You walk into a hotel room and what's the temperature set on? Like sometimes I walk in, it's like 66 degrees. I am freezing. Like nobody's there. You're walking in at 66 degrees. So just think about that. I mean, we use a lot of energy. We use a lot of water. So I think there are real opportunities for owners to do a better job there. And you're seeing the increased use, the increase of these green funds. More so in Europe. We haven't seen it as much in the U.S., but I think it's coming. So funds that are investing in projects that have strong ESG components.
I think it's this generation that is sort of driving a lot of these trends. You've been a lifelong learner, undergraduate and 2 graduate degrees, and then you've pivoted so many jobs, learning in each, new skills in each job. What else are you interested in learning? Are there any recreational or professional or more education goals you have, something that you thought about?
I'm smiling. I have to get better in golf. So we'll be taking some side courses on golf, but outside of that, so that's more recreational. Yeah, look, I think I am a lifelong learner. I'm one of these people that likes to dig into problems. I mean, right now for me, I think it's such a fascinating time to be alive, because if you step back from a macroeconomic environment, we just came out of a 12-year period, quantitative easing. The Fed has pumped, $9 trillion of liquidity into the economy. Congress has provided liquidity from a fiscal perspective. Rates have been low for a long time. And voila, we wake up and now we've got, 8, 9% inflation, which people have been predicting for a long time, but it's finally happened. And of course, it's on the back of a pandemic. So I am really interested to see, and most of us in our working lives have not lived at a time when inflation was this high. So I'm really interested to see how the inflation situation, the rate situation, the demand situation coming off of the pandemic, sort of the interplay of all those factors and how that plays out. So the nerd in me is just really fascinated about the times that we're living in now. I mean, Zach talked about me being a bit contrarian, and I tend to be that way. I was telling some of the students at dinner last night, my view of the world is, look, when the world zigs, you zag, right? The people that frequently do incredibly well are people that run against the grain. They're not afraid to be trailblazers and to do something different. It's the old adage, right? High risk, high return. And so I tend to approach our industry that way. And so again, right now, it's just fascinating because there's so many things that are shifting. Nobody really has a playbook on how this is going to play out. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about that and what it means for hospitality, for commercial real estate, and of course, what it means for our firm in the brokerage business.
So I think everyone, all the students have been listening very carefully and have been gleaning some pieces of wisdom. But is there anything that you want to tell them directly, any advice that you have to these aspiring hospitality leaders who are going to be leading our industry in the near future?
Yeah, I think it's tied to my last point, which is, look, you have to run your own race. And what I mean is, look, everybody's doing their thing, and you may have parents that are pulling you in this direction, friends that are pulling you in that direction, and you kind of want to please and you kind of want to go with the grain and do what everybody else is doing. And that's great if you really like it or love it and want to do it, absolutely. But if you don't, you can't be afraid to go in a different direction. It's really fascinating. It may not be super glamorous to graduate and go work in a hotel. But I will tell you, people in my seat and people in the investment seat, very few of us have hotel operating experience. Very few of us have actually worked in hotels. And so if you said, I want to be the next superstar hospitality investor, and your friends are like, well, you got to go to Goldman, and then you go to Blackstone, and then, well, no, I'm going to go work in this, full service hotel. I'll be behind the desk and I'll do that. Look, that is one way to be the next superstar hotel investor, because I guarantee you will learn more about the operations of a hotel than anybody who's sitting around a desk with a big job and a big title. And I guarantee you that you fast forward 10, 15 years later, when you're investing in hotels, you will have a competitive advantage. You can't be afraid to execute on that business plan. You may be the only one doing it. You can't be afraid to do it, because that's what's going to give you the competitive advantage. You don't get the competitive advantage when you're doing what everybody else is doing. It doesn't work that way by definition. So that, for me, that's been sort of a defining thing, and I try to tell my kids that, which is, look, if this is your passion and it's a little bit against the grain and you love it, go for it. It'll work out.
I'm so glad that your kids listen to you, but
I don't know about that. I try.
So since we reached almost to the end, just to lighten things up, I have a couple of just a speed round questions for you. Just in a couple of words, tell us which is your favorite place to travel?
Man, that's tough. Kauai. We love Hawaii. Kauai is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
Are there any places within US or outside that you've not gone that's on your bucket list?
I'd really like to go to Blackberry Farm in Tennessee. High-end resort, well-reviewed. Haven't been, but would like to get there.
since you travel so much, you eat out pretty much all the time. Is there some dish that comes to your mind that you've eaten that was really struck you as, oh, this is fantastic?
You know, I'm from New Orleans, so it's going to be a New Orleans dish. It would have to be gumbo, which is I grew up eating. It's you know, that is a dish. To me, the best foods are the ones that sort of remind you of family and friends and like those warm feelings. And that's a dish that just speaks family to me.
So my last question, if you could invite anyone to dinner at your home, living or from the history, who would that be?
Oh, wow. You didn't prepare me for this one.
No.
Oh, wow. That is, you know, I think I'll give you, you know, it might actually be Thurgood Marshall, the former Supreme Court justice, who did so much in desegregating the schools. And I think, you know, as a result of all the things that he did, it really helped create a level playing field from a legal perspective. And being trained as a lawyer, I had an opportunity to sort of see and learn cases that he argued that I've been a direct beneficiary of. And so when you asked the question, that was the first person that came to mind. So there you go.
Yeah, I can just imagine the fascinating conversation with someone who changed the course of history in the United States. So I would like to thank Kevin. Thank you so much for coming to our school. Thank you, Zach. I want to now hand it back to Professor Lance to conclude today's talk.
Kevin, that was great to listen to. Thank you. You're inspiring. And thank you for also reiterating the power of good writing. My students know what I'm talking about. So I was really happy to hear that. Thank you. Zach, thank you for staying connected with your alma mater and bringing this opportunity to us today. We're really gratefully, really appreciative. And please, everybody, just offer another round of applause for Kevin. And if you'll just give Dean Apneja and Kevin a moment to step into the hallway, please join us for a reception afterwards, and we'll see you soon in a few weeks for our next Dean's Distinguished Speaker. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.